Texas. Texas, or for the dyslexic, Taxes. A beautiful state known for its industries, its legends, its size, and an outlaw reputation that some would say is kind of wild. Not that wild. I've set out to find one movie that could represent each state in the United States, and Texas is a great place to start. Each state has a unique identity that requires blending one's knowledge of cinema and culture, which Texas does very well. For example, a good movie sure does make me hungry, and there's no place to have an appetite for film like Texas. It's a state that can take credit for the creation of the Alamo Drafthouse, a place where you can get indigestion from a steamy bowl of chili and watch your favorite actor take their clothes off for an Oscar at the same time. Speaking of chili, it is the state food of Texas, a delectable stew that emanates through time as a legendary cowboy meal. In making a chili, you might try and find the perfect combination of beans, meat, onions, peppers. What else? Do you add corn, bacon? Dare I say, make it vegetarian? You can really put anything into a chili, and if you cook it long enough, it probably won't taste like ass.
Maybe I had a stew going.
I think I'd like my money back.
But what if you actually want to make it taste good? Really bring out the flavors of Texas? Well, you might have to find your very own special Texas ingredients to really make this chili purr. What does film have to do with chili? Nothing. But I am hungry, and I found it to be an accessible metaphor for what I'm trying to do. Of all the great Texas films, whether it's Giant or The Last Picture Show, or Friday Night Lights, No Country for Old Men, Hell or High Water, all of these films have great steak. But which film has found the perfect Texas blend? Which film should represent Texas and earn the official cracked stamp of approval as the cinema of the state? Let's find out. I'm Michael Strauss, and this is the 50 States of Film. The Lonestar State has a rich history and culture that contributes to its unique identity as a state. If a movie were to represent the state of Texas, it might need to hit on some themes that are quintessentially Texan. I'm not talking about the Alamo Drafthouse anymore. I'm talking about the Wild, Wild West. I roll into the Wild, Wild West when I stroll. Again, not that one. And football. When I say the West, I mean those spicy, everlasting tropes that give Texas its special flavor of Southwestern culture. Yes, that means simple things like cactus or stupid things like the law. Also, Tex-Mex, the general diversity of the state, the border, oil, and of course, cowboy culture. Cowboy culture can include cowboys, robberies, boots, line dancing, rodeo, meat, horses, beer, and or anything that may occur on a ranch. It may be important to include Texas's state motto here, which is just friendship. I know, that's surprising for a state that serves get off my lawn like hot tuna. And of course, no good Texas film is complete without the recognition of the Alamo. Thanks, Willie. For the record, there is no basement in the Alamo, so remember that. Now, when I say football, I do mean the sport and the religious ritual embraced by small towns in Texas. Because if a movie were to rep Texas, it might not have to be about football, but it better have some football in it. And also, small town gatherings, high school, Texas Longhorns, racism, and maybe Army. Films like Friday Night Lights are sometimes about football, but really they're a pastiche of small town America. Usually a character is stuck in said small town and has no hope of leaving, even if they're a very gifted, prodigal, football-playing teenager. Odds are the only thing that a character gets out of a small town is a sorry nickname like Booby and possibly venereal disease. Of course, I'm referring to Raider Rash, which is not a real disease, but a nickname given to any STD you might contract in Lubbock, Texas. Aside from the West and football, the wild card and most essential item on this checklist is Matthew McConaughey. For those of you who are raising an eyebrow in concern, let me explain. This is a man who won an Oscar for his role in Dallas Buyers Club, a movie that cannot entirely fit the description of the state movie of Texas, but still features a whole bunch of breaking the law, vigilante justice, and rodeo. Let's put a pin in Matty McC for a moment. I know we're cooking with gas, but there are so many more ingredients we need to consider. All right, I know what you're thinking. Michael, this is a checklist, not a recipe. Well, at one point, this show might have actually been a food show, but there are too many food shows, and I have the same tastes as Guy Fieri, so I might as well stick to what I know and talk about movies. So which film can really represent Texas? In this case, Texas has so many incredible films, I feel compelled to name a handful of the frontrunners for you. I now present to you some shitty log lines and a montage to acquaint you with the best Texas has to offer. We'll start with some classics, like Giant. Big oil, ranchers, and James Dean meet in this Western. Watch James Dean find black gold as he works the land and gets rich. It's right with Texarkana, this is one of our favorites, as is The Wild Bunch, where thieves stupidly take on the entire military of Mexico, and they meet their doom. A legendary Western which, despite receiving recognition from the Library of Congress, never mentions the Alamo. Speaking of the Alamo, the famed John Wayne flick consisting of the slowest, longest, most painful snooze fest of a battle scene of all time, and surprisingly, not one mention of small town football, unlike The Last Picture Show, which finally features football. Small town cowboys, teenage sex, oil. Well, okay, there's actually no oil because the town is in decline after the oil derricks dried up. But watch an adorable little Jeff Bridges be a Texas teen, count me in. And then there's HUD. Generations of dads and sons get into a fight over their sick cows, but without Paul Newman, there's not much to this one. Enough of black and white. Let's take a look at some more modern classics, like No Country for Old Men. A man with a terrible haircut haunts the landscape by killing people with a captive bolt pistol. Law enforcement doesn't stand a chance as a chase begins over the Mexican border in the now trending border town of Eagle Pass. It's a great movie. Also, Tommy Lee Jones friggin' rocks. Speaking of awesome performances, Jeff Bridges gives a performance of a lifetime in Hell or High Water, where two brothers try and save their ranch by robbing banks. They're really good at it and are kinda crazy, so the cops seem like the bad guys. Oh, and I cannot forget Friday Night Lights, where small town boys with mean dads try to get a ticket to a brighter future by winning Texas State football. Also some more esoteric but important films to mention: Terrence Malick's Tree of Life, Wes Anderson's Rushmore, and Pee Wee Herman's Big Adventure. Or most importantly, the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Yes, that one. What do all these movies have in common? Well, they all have the West, they have football, they got cowboy shit, but none of them have Matthew McConaughey. Except for the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. But wait, Michael, he was just a baby in this film. Texas Chainsaw Massacre came out in 1973, and McConaughey was born in '69. Nice. But there are 9 Texas Chainsaw Massacre films, and McConaughey just so happens to be in one of them. The Texas Chainsaw Massacre is a famed 1974 slasher film, which has a lot of chainsaw and massacre, but not a whole lot of Texas. Largely considered wonderful and controversial at the same time. This brings me to 1995's The Texas Chainsaw Massacre: The Next Generation. Even though this is not the definitive Texas film I have been looking for, this film adaptation does one thing right: Matthew freaking McConaughey. Why is he so essential to Texas and thusly Texas cinema? Well, we can start with the obvious. Matthew McConaughey was born in Uvalde, Texas, and after a brief stint in Australia, returned to the University of Texas at Austin to study. He still lives in Texas today and nearly ran for governor in 2021. But what did the people of Texas think of all this? Texas voters were more keen on voting for Matthew McConaughey than popular candidate Beto O'Rourke by almost 2-1, according to a poll released by Dallas Morning News and the University of Texas at Tyler. Still don't think he's the essential ingredient? McConaughey has nearly made himself a mascot for the state. He became a professor at UT Austin, is a part owner of the Austin Football Club, which, yes, is soccer, but has the word football in it at least. And lest we forget, he got his start in Dazed and Confused, a suburban Texan coming-of-age story directed by a suburban Texan, Richard Linklater. McConaughey is so Texas, he can win an Oscar for his role in Dallas Buyers Club and still play a stripper named Dallas in Magic Mike. If that doesn't make him my special ingredient, my secret sauce, I don't know what does. Which leads me to the piece de resistance. Only a year after he was in Texas Chainsaw Massacre, McConaughey takes on a supporting role as Sheriff Buddy Deeds in what many say is the most Texas movie of all modern Texas movies, Lone Star. Lone Star is a neo-noir western and 90s masterpiece. It boasts a soundtrack of sultry Stevie Ray Vaughan-style guitar licks too sexy for a TV. This movie is so Texas that it bears its symbolic pseudonym, and within the first 5 minutes, we get cactus, the desert, a sheriff, army dudes, a bunch of old guys drinking Shinerbach, a shootout, a talk about the border, and moreover, a really rousing and shockingly familiar discussion of the state's history and the multitudes that history contains.
Now you people can believe whatever you want, but when it comes to teaching our children...
There are children too, and as a majority in this community, we have the right.
Well, the men that founded this state have the right to have their story told the way it happened, not the way somebody wanted it to happen.
The men who founded this state broke from Mexico because they needed slavery to be legal to make a fortune in the cotton business.
The film begins with a couple of off-base army guys wandering through the desert looking for scrap metal and checking out cactus. They come across a skull and a sheriff's badge. That's where Chris Cooper shows up as Sheriff Sam Deeds. Not moments later, we learn that this is opening up a can of worms, an old case that involves Sam's dad, Buddy Deeds, and a black bar owner and his army son, and a school teacher and her business-savvy mother. It's the perfect setup for a mystery that surrounds the old sheriff Charlie Wade's disappearance. Wade is played by Texas legend and country singer Chris Christopherson. Naturally, he plays a racist, fear-mongering, corrupt sheriff. He screws with everyone in town, including local barman Otis Payne, played by Ron Canada, restaurant owner Mercedes Cruz, played by Miriam Colon, and his deputy, Buddy Deeds, played by Matthew McConaughey himself. The film mainly follows Sam Deeds, the son of Buddy, but we start to see all of the children of the aforementioned victims of the bastard sheriff Charlie Wade, Otis's son Delmore Payne, who's a military officer stationed in town, and school teacher Pilar, Mercedes' daughter, and old-time love interest of Sam. You learn about guys like Charlie and his lackey Hollis Pogue, who really represent old-school corruption and racism, and how Buddy Deeds fights for the common man and is still a corrupt bureaucrat, just a sort of benevolent one. We learn that Charlie Wade extorted the Payne family bar and killed Mercedes' husband, a father Pilar never met. Sam is unsure what to make of all this and keeps talking to locals who admire his father so much it makes him sick. Hating your dad is a big part of Texas culture, so this actually checks a lot of boxes for me. See, Sam is returning to small town Texas, a town that he grew up in, taking on the job of sheriff after his father passes. There's a huge generational message that things change, but the amount of Texas remains the same. Everyone in the community plays a part in making the mise-en-scène so freaking Texas, in a modern sense and even in a romanticized one.
A reporter from a national magazine asked the governor of our Lonestar State, "Governor, what's your ideal of what a real Texan ought to be?"
Just so we can get it out of the way, the small town and Western culture is pretty evident in this film so far. We got Matthew McConaughey as well, but where's the football of it all? Sam starts to learn that his dad was a champion for all of the folks Charlie Wade messed with. He goes back to his ex-wife's place to find some old letters from his dad to help clear up some mysteries, and this is where the Texas meter is turned up to 11.
If you can see, the numbers all go to 11.
The scene begins with an actual football game broadcast, and then we see the entire fanatical home of Bunny, who by the way is played by Frances freaking McDormand. Sure, she's the key to all of his dad's old documents, but also is a pill-popping diehard football fan who can't stop talking about the Cowboys and the NFL draft. Sam is stuck between the world of the Old West and the modern megalith of Texas football and city life. Of course, all of this happens while she walks past UT Austin decorations while wearing a Houston Oilers hat, which, if you were wondering, where the oil really played a part in this film, that's where it is. Now that you've seen this absolute mess that Sam saved himself from, he rekindles his connection with Pilar. They strike up their old friendship with such deep nostalgia at how their parents used to tear them apart. Cue the steamy sex scene. Now there's your friendship, folks. But what about the Alamo? Well, if I haven't already spoiled most of this movie for you, or given you the gift of knowledge that this movie is absolutely worth seeing, then this next bit will blow your mind. Sam and Pilar sit in the old drive-in movie theater where they used to hang out, which lay in ruin, apparently symbolic of dusty small-town vibes and its direct contrast with the Old West. And then, in a weird turn of events, Sam asks Pilar about her dad. Okay, let's get this straight. Two old friends meet back where it all started, a relic of the past, talking about both of their fathers, realizing that they share the same one. But it's all good, because Pilar can't have kids. Close one. But in one last act of defiance of the status quo, she says,
"Forget the Alamo."
As if how we remember our history is just as important as how we think about our future. After all, Texas is a state of mind, where your best friend can also be your sibling/sex partner. With all that being said, I'd like to award Lonestar our first ever Cinema of the State. With Oscar, Golden Globe, and BAFTA nominations for Best Screenplay, the film does feel like an accurate, exhilarating, and even fucked up snapshot of Texas in all of its Western multitudes. It really has all the goods, or ingredients, if you will, thrown together to make one tasty movie. We have movies that gave us depictions of Odessa and the Alamo, but Texas deserves a film like Lonestar that captures a wide breadth of Texas culture set against a backdrop of epic neo-noir 90s cinema. Now, if you'll excuse me, I'm off to the Alamo Draft House, where I'm about to down 4 IPAs, 3 chili dogs, and watch an original 35mm version of Air Bud, Golden Receiver. I've been Michael Strauss. This is the 50 States of Film.